Okay, so my name is Marcus Trice, and I'm doing a video response for FTT 2016586, firearms finishing and engraving, and hopefully I have this correct. I am doing a video response, and the reason why I'm doing a video response is because I truly find this whole thing fascinating, and this has been literally like a 2-year process for me. I initially purchased this book in reference to bluing and refinishing firearms, and this book was made in 1936. So in reading this and then also doing the assigned readings, it closed some things for me and made it very interesting to read, to see what I read from here, and then also some other stuff that I read online. So in this question, it's asking about hot bluing or caustic bluing, the two I'm going to use, and then also browning procedures. I'm not too sure if you want us to talk about the slow browning procedure or the different manufacturers. So with that in mind, I will mention the two different, well, I guess there's the 3 different things that you can use for the slow browning or the browning process. And the basic browning, which I had no idea that you you can brown a firearm with table salt and water, distilled water, for the basic browning. But then obviously there's Laurel Mountain Brown, and the other one here is the Dixie. Let me make sure I got the name correct here. It is the Laurel Mountain Brown and the Dixie Gun Works formula. And obviously the Dixie Gun Work formula is like a 100-year-old formula. So it looks like the 2 different formulas here, which as far as browning my own firearms, it actually has opened up another step for me, or another avenue, I guess, in that browning process. So it looks like with the difference between the Dixie is that you are applying a coating of their Dixie formula, and then you are waiting 6 to 12 hours, and then putting it. They're talking about constructing a sweat box, and I actually have I called it a humidity box for the slow rusting. And you're gonna, after it's been in the sweat box, you're gonna card it with, and they're recommending double-aught steel wool. And then you're gonna do other steps along that line, where you're going to apply more of the chemical to it, and then put it in the sweat box, and then card it, and then you're going to coat it in oil. So, oh, I'm sorry, you will be, after you've applied the different chemicals, you've sweated it, carded it, or their chemical, you've sweated it, carded it, and you've gotten that desired look, then you're going to boil it, and you're going to boil it to stop the rusting process. Now, with the Laurel Mountain Brown, it's a little different. And what I realized through the reading in here is that you are going to do a coating. You're going to leave the coating on it for about 3 hours, and then rub it with a cloth rather than carding it. And then, as it says in here, with an old towel dripped in hot water. This removes the surface scale that builds up and evens the browning. And then you're going to do that again in about 3 hours. So you're going to do 2 coats right after each other. So you're going to do 1 coat, and then a second coat, and then 3 hours later you're going to rub it down, and then you can do continuous applications after that. Now what's interesting, it says do not boil the parts. the surface will turn black rather than brown when boiled. So that's something that's kind of interesting and different between the two. And not to make this a long video, there's the two different types of bluing, the hot bluing and the caustic bluing. And one of the things I didn't realize, and I thought that there was, I confused hot bluing and caustic bluing together. So with caustic bluing, you're going from a tank of alkalinity, and well, obviously, real quick, I want to say that all of these parts that we're doing, obviously, all the imperfections are being removed, they're being polished, and then they're being degreased. And then you're going to go through the rusting process. And again, the rusting process is a way of I'm going to say encapsulating or preserving that metal through a controlled rusting process. And so it makes it look beautiful, and it protects it at the same time. So I just wanted to make sure that I put out the what rusting really is. But anyway, so with caustic bluing, you're going through these different tanks. You're going through the alkaline tank, and then you're going into a salt bath. And you're going into two. So you're mixing these different chemicals in these two tanks, and you're heating it to a certain temperature. And then you're going into a water tank, and then you're going into an oil tank. Versus so that would be a caustic bluing. But then when you're talking about hot bluing, and this is where I didn't realize that you're not mixing the chemical in the tank and then applying your metal component into the tank. You're using the tanks to heat the metal that you want to blue, and you're putting the bluing agent on the part. So that's the two the differences between the hot bluing and the caustic bluing. And one of the things I wanted to point out in here, if I go back up into here, one of the things, what's interesting, so that I from my own personal bluing was, I actually did go to Brownells, and I've been researching the tanks and things like that. So between browning and bluing, as we know, the bluing with the is much quicker, but it's much more expensive. Versus the slow rusting browning is less expensive, but more time consuming, and takes a lot more to accomplish it. And what I just wanted to mention on here is, so like I said, for the caustic, you've got the hot alkaline, cold water rinse, the 285 degree bluing tank, then you have another 300 degree bluing tank, cold water rinse, and then the hot soluble oil. So those are the different types of bluing. Oh, and then there's the cold bluing, and I'm assuming that you meant like the perma-blue that you had mentioned in the actual question. And I don't think I would blue a firearm with this. I mean, I think people do it, and I think that they probably have mixed results from it. But so you have cold bluing, hot bluing, caustic bluing, and then you have the browning, and you have different ways, different chemicals that you're using from the two different companies. The Dixie, and I think that I would probably, I think it was the the Mountain. The Laurel Mountain actually has a degreaser in it, which I think is appealing. Not that it's not that you don't want to try to degrease the item before you're starting your bluing, but that's one positive out of using the Laurel Mountain browning. So let me go back to the assignment question. So we have select the two bluing procedures: the cold bluing, hot bluing, or caustic bluing. So I've touched on all of those, and any two browning procedures. which is the basic, which is obviously with table salt and distilled water. And then obviously we have the Dixie and the Laurel Mountain. Compare and contrast the two procedures for each, and also discuss the material setup, safety. All of them, you're going to need safety precautions. I think that with the caustic bluing, I think that one would probably require more safety precautions, because you're dealing with a lot of large volumes of heated caustic agents, and the heated oil. So you would definitely want to do that outside. You definitely want to have very good ventilation, and you definitely want to have very good protective gear. Not that you wouldn't want to have protective gear with all of those, but I really truly think that the caustic bluing is probably the more hazardous of them. And when it talks about the similarities and the differences and things like that, but I think with the slow rusting, you get a better result. I know it takes longer, it's cheaper, but I truly think that you get a better result with that slower rusting. And with the caustic bluing and the hot bluing, it's quicker. You do get a good result. You can do more firearms at one time if that's how you had your business set up, versus the slow rusting. If you were doing one or two pieces here and there, then I would go with the slow rusting method. So thank you very much. Hopefully I haven't made this video too long. Thank you.